Our deepest calling is to grow into our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our own path of authentic service in the world. And that was said by Parker J. Palmer. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Egan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. Now, folks, very often on these shows, you have heard me complain about the government. You've heard me say that the problems that we face all come from our government, from government corruption, and from the corruption of the system itself. Now, this is very true in many ways. It is the system itself that is corrupt, that causes all of the problems. But ultimately, when you get down to the very nature of the system itself, what you find is that the system is us. It is we the people. We are the ones who support the system, and we are the ones who essentially hold it up in its every aspect due to our compliance with the system, and yet the system itself only exists on paper. It's just an idea, a set of rules that have been written down that the people that work within the system continually add to in order to make the system itself more efficient. But ultimately the problem with the system itself is us. It is we the people. Because, as I said, we are the ones who hold it up due to our compliance with the system. Now, just getting your head around this basic understanding can completely change your perspective of what the system is and how to fix the problems that we face as a species. Because it becomes clear that non-compliance to the system is the way to fix the problems. And this is regardless of your position in society. This is regardless of whether you are a common worker, whether you are a policeman, whether you're a politician. Because all the people in all these walks of life, most of them are not happy with the state of the world. Most police officers I talk to certainly aren't happy. And folks, look, when you look at police officers, some of them can be completely sociopathic, totally without empathy, and can be quite brutal, cruel, and totally inhuman. But again, a lot of that is generated simply by the fact that they're wearing that uniform, because that's the effect that uniforms have on people. But a lot of police officers that you meet, they really do not like the state of the world. Most of the good police officers actually end up leaving the force early due to stress-related problems. I've actually recently met a lady whose husband was a police officer who had to leave the force because of stress-related problems, was sick of seeing dead people, sick of dealing with brain-dead people within society. And again, this is the type of society that's been created by society itself, by the education system, and by the whole hierarchical structure of this society. You can't blame the people. You have to blame the system. But then you've got to understand, as I said, that it is the people that are holding up the system. So whenever you sit there and you say, well, non-compliance would be good, but they won't let us do that, what you're failing to see is that they is us. We are the ones who make up they. Whether this be they the police force, they the politicians, they the bankers, the people working within the banks, the tellers and the bank managers, all these people, these come from the community. They are us. The miners, the people working for the gas companies that are carrying out the fracking, these are us. These are all people who come from the community. Many of these people are simply workers. They need the job in order to put food on the table. But what they are forgetting is that it's a temporary reprieve. It's a Band-Aid, because they say they're doing what they do in order to put food on the table and to support their family and their children. But by their actions, and this goes especially for people working in the fracking industry, what they are doing is they are destroying the world, so that they may be putting food on the table for their children now, but by doing so in the manner in which they are doing it, they are ensuring that their children will not have a world to live in. So they need to find another way of putting food on the table, And the best way to do that is to connect with the community, connect with the people around you, and to find better ways of creating communal gardens and getting that food to the table for free, regardless of what the government tells you have to do. And if the government tells you you can't grow food, then the people within the government and within the police forces who are enforcing this type of ridiculous legislation need to realise that what they are doing is they are taking food away from their children, and they are ensuring that their children and their grandchildren and countless generations to come will not have a habitable planet to live on. You see, it's all us, folks. We are the ones who are supporting this system by our compliance with it, and what we should be doing is supporting each other. Now, the current state of the world we live on is one of extreme crisis, and that's an understatement. I mean, we thought things were getting pretty bad with the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, but now compound that oil spill with the situation that's happening in Fukushima, Japan, and then compound that with the problem of fracking that we are now facing in all of our countries, and then compound that with the situation that's happening in Libya, in Gaza, in Egypt, all through the Middle East. Compound that with the massive amounts of depleted uranium that are being released into the environment through these wars, and it becomes very obvious that both the human race and the planet itself are in a time of extreme crisis. And this crisis is truly a reflection of us. It is a reflection of our failure to conquer the fear within us, and it is the fear within us that keeps us subservient to this fictional system that seems to be intent on destroying all life except itself and that which serves the system. But it is a crisis, folks, and it's a crisis that can still be averted if humanity steps up to the mark and addresses the problem head on. But it absolutely has to be addressed head on. It has to be addressed peacefully, but it has to be addressed head on. And it also has to be addressed by the people. We can't allow the governments to address it or even expect the governments to address it, because the governments operate only within the system, and the system is designed to only ever support the system. We need to dispense with the red tape, folks. We need to simply act, because we don't have time to waste on red tape. And now, folks, if things weren't bad enough with what we're facing from incidents such as the Gulf of Mexico oil spill and the nuclear meltdown that's happening at Fukushima, Japan, the problem of fracking is simply the last straw. Because fracking, which is hydraulic fracturing, this is pumping fluids, very toxic fluids I might add, into the crust of the earth, 8,000 to 11,000 feet into the crust of the earth, and shattering everything down there and mixing it all together to allow the gas deposits to escape. And what this does is it mixes all the underground aquifers, it blows them up. All the water that comes up in brooks and springs from the ground, it destroys all of these water sources. Now, most of the creeks and rivers that flow in our countries start as springs. All of these springs flow up from underground aquifers. Of course, there's a great deal of runoff from things such as precipitation, but a good bulk of the water that comes down in creeks and streams and brooks from the forest is fed by springs. Fracking destroys these underground aquifers, and this will effectively destroy many of the fresh water sources on this planet. Now, bear in mind, folks, that there is only about 3% of the water on this planet that is potable, drinkable water. And at any given time, there is only anywhere from 1 to 3% of that exists above ground. The rest of it exists in aquifers below the surface of the earth. And fracking will destroy these aquifers. When we explore space and we look for life signs on other planets, the first thing we look for is water, because only with water can life exist. And what fracking is essentially doing is destroying the fresh water source on this planet. Our governments have already worked very hard to destroy all life in the oceans on this planet with the amount of oil spills and deep wells they've drilled into the ocean. We seem to be moving very fast towards destroying the air on this planet with the meltdown that we're seeing happen in Fukushima, which is also going a very long way to destroying the oceans on this planet as well. We seem to be indulging in endless wars, which is very effectively contaminating the planet with depleted uranium and destroying a lot of the human life on the planet, and also keeping people very distracted from all of the other damage that is being done. Now, it's imperative that the people stand up to address these problems. With the problem that we're facing from the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and the problem that we are facing with the Fukushima meltdown, it's about time the human race grew up and started acting like adults, stopped squabbling with each other. You soldiers who are going to wars, stop squabbling with each other. Simply walk away from your leaders. And all you people within society, stop depending on your councillors and senators to save you. Sure, keep writing to them and telling them what you want done, but don't expect them to do anything. You have to stand up and do it yourself. And the soldiers that are fighting for these people, wake up and stop fighting for the destruction of the earth, because that's what you're all doing. We all need to stop for a minute and to pay attention to what's going on around us. Now, we need to stop this fracking, folks. We need to stop this at all costs. And we need to seriously and clearly understand that any politician that is allowing fracking or supporting fracking in their area is openly contributing to the destruction of the water table on this planet, and needs to step down from office immediately. And the police of our world need to see what is going on here, and they need to take immediate action to address this type of criminal activity, because it is criminal activity, regardless of what legislation is in place to say that it's not. Anybody who is supporting this or is enforcing legislation that is supporting this is contributing to the destruction of the water table on this planet. And this will be the last straw. It's very unlikely that the Earth will recover from something like this. So what more could it possibly take? What more could it possibly take for the human race to actually get up off its knees, to stand on its feet, and to say enough is enough?